Hey everyone, thanks for clicking on this video. I'll dive right into it. I want to argue that it is hypocritical for Democrats to advocate for renewable energy tax incentives while also blasting corporations for not paying their fair share in taxes. To make my point, I will discuss the tax incentives and business structures that result in a few banks obtaining those tax incentives. Please note, I am not arguing against these tax incentives. I am just pointing out a hypocrisy and using it as an excuse to talk about some tax law. Let's get into it. I'm going to walk through this step by step. Congress passes tax incentives for renewable energy projects. This was done as recently as 2022 in the Inflation Reduction Act. I'll point out that Republicans and Democrats have passed these tax incentives, but I don't consider it that hypocritical of Republicans because a lot of their agenda is reducing taxes. Anyway, Congress passes two primary tax incentives. Those are tax credits and tax deductions. So what's the difference between tax credits and tax deductions? A tax credit is a dollar for dollar reduction in taxes owed. For example, if you owe $100 in taxes and you have a $20 tax credit, then you'd reduce your taxes owed by $20 and pay the government $80. In other words, a $20 tax credit actually saves you $20. On the other hand, the value of a tax deduction depends on the tax rate. For example, suppose you earn $100 of income and are taxed at 10%. A $20 deduction would reduce your income to $80, which would result in a tax of $8 instead of $10 without the deduction. This means the $20 deduction saved you $2. Anyway, these tax incentives are supposed to incentivize the creation of renewable energy projects, but there's a problem. Most developers of renewable energy projects cannot utilize all of the tax incentives because, for example, they may receive more in tax credits than they actually owe in taxes. So, the developer will find an investor, typically a bank or insurance company, to help finance the project. Part of the investor's return on investment is in the form of the tax incentives. But how does the developer and investor effectuate this arrangement? Well, a key part of the tax incentives is that you have to be an equity investor, meaning an owner of the project. Note that the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022 did add the ability to sell the tax credits, but that's beyond the scope of this video. So, to qualify for the tax incentives, the developer and investor need to be co-owners of the renewable energy project. They effectuate this by organizing a partnership. Let's talk briefly about partnerships. Partnerships provide a lot of flexibility for organizing business relationships. Partnerships are pass-through entities because they do not pay tax directly. Instead, income and other tax items are passed through to the partners based on the partnership agreement. The most popular structure of partnership for renewable energy projects is called the partnership flip. In a partnership flip deal, the investor receives 99% of the partnership's taxable income, loss, and tax credits each year until the investor receives its target yield, at which point the allocation flips and the investor receives 5% of the tax items instead. After the flip, the investor will usually sell its ownership to the developer and exit the investment. The end result is that tax incentives for renewable energy projects end up being utilized by banks and insurance companies. In 2020, about half of these investments were made by two banks, JP Morgan and Bank of America. Also, for context, these investments were a $17 to $18 billion market in 2020. A quick note about this article I'm referencing: Norton Rose Fulbright is a large law firm that has a specialty in renewable energy projects, and Keith Martin, the author, is a highly regarded lawyer in the field. In conclusion, the reason I think the Democrats are hypocrites is because they advocate for these renewable energy tax incentives, which is fine, but then they also complain that the investors in these projects, such as large banks, do not pay their fair share in taxes. It's hypocritical, and I don't like it. Anyway, that's the video. Please like and subscribe if you found this informative, and follow me on X at Rogue Overton. Thanks for watching.